Hey everyone, David Rishpan here again on YouTube. Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, welcome for the first time. Today I wanted to talk about avoiding physical injury as a musician. I had a pretty crazy couple of weeks at the beginning of September, end of August, beginning of September, and I realized there were things both conscious and subconscious that I have been doing for years to avoid physical injury in my career. And I wanted to share those considerations and those pieces of advice with you. A couple of disclaimers before we dive into the rest of the video. I am not a medical professional, and if you are injured in any way, please go seek actual professional medical advice. This is just anecdotal in what I have experienced over the 25 years of being a professional musician. The second disclaimer is that this video is not sponsored. If I mention products, they are products that I have bought with my own money that I personally use. So, what was my schedule at the end of August and beginning of September? The last weekend of August, I had two salsa gigs on a Friday night. I had an R&B gig on Saturday night that was two sets. And then Sunday morning and early afternoon, I had a 5 set restaurant gig.
Alors méfie-toi, je t'avertis, ces vagues sont faites en marche, et tu vas regretter, car je mettrai ces fautes un jour ou l'autre pour te quitter.
So that was 9 sets of music in 3 days. And then on the Monday, I flew out to Paris to record with the Brazilian legend Jorge Benjor. More on that to come, hopefully soon. We recorded for 2 days in Paris with Jorge, and then I flew back from Paris to Toronto to meet up with a Brazilian artist named Rommel. And with Rommel, we did a show in Toronto on the Friday night, and then a show in Ottawa on Saturday night. So inside of 2 weeks, I played. So that's about 14 sets of music inside of 2 weeks, plus a 2 day recording session. That's a lot of playing. And that's probably more playing in such a condensed period than I've done possibly all year. Most of my work this year has been spread out with a lot of off days, a lot of travel days, days to recover. And in this particular instance, these 2 weeks, I did not have that much time to recover. And I knew it going in. So there were things I did to protect myself. Hence why I'm making this video. The first big category of advice is protect your body. Now, there's 3 subcategories to that statement. The first one is protect your entire body. If you watched my travel tips video that I made while I was in Paris, you'll know that sleep, nutrition, and hydration are incredibly useful and important to me in order to beat jet lag. And that's just in general a truth on the road. Get as much sleep as you can, eat as well as you can, drink as much water as you can. I know on tour it's very, very tough. I knew, especially for the shows with Rommel at the end of that run, that the Friday in particular, which I flew back from Paris, it was basically a 24-hour day for me. I flew back from Paris, landed in Toronto, and our show in Toronto was at 11 p.m. So a really, really long day, late night. And I knew as I get closer to 40 that I wasn't going to get through a day like that without a substantial amount of sleep. And sometimes that means you have to miss a bit of the hang. You have to learn what you need, what your body needs, and prioritize that over maybe all the partying. It's also that I know if I'm not physically and mentally in shape to go party after my 11 p.m. show, I'm not going to be that much fun at the party anyway. And the older I get, the more I am able to kind of understand what my body and my mind need, what my body is asking me for, and how to be in service to my body as a musician so that I can deliver the best music and be of service to my bandmates throughout the entire run of the tour. The second subcategory is to protect your hearing. Our ears are our most important tool as musicians, and clubs, especially the front of house, are really, really loud. Even if you're running in ear monitors on stage, the minute you go out into the crowd or if you go out to another show, you should definitely be carrying some kind of hearing protection with you. I personally use the Etymotic ER20 earplugs. They are not custom earplugs. They are high fidelity musician earplugs that just lower the decibel limit or the decibel level of everything equally and don't mess up the EQ curve. They work for me. There are lots of other kind of high fidelity earplugs on the market right now. If you are willing to spend the money on custom earplugs, those are great solutions as well. But definitely have a pair of cheap universal fit, high fidelity earplugs with you at all times. Whenever I go out in front of the PA or out to a club, I always have them in my pocket. I never leave home without it. The third subcategory is protect your hands and your arms. I have been really lucky that I have not had performance related physical injury. I have had equipment related physical injury. The scariest moment of my career was I had come back from being on tour where I was using rented and backlined keyboards. So I didn't have to carry equipment for about 2 weeks and I didn't have to set anything up. And then I came back and I did a local gig and I was walking up the hill to the venue with my Nord over my shoulder in its gig bag. And immediately I took one wrong step up the hill and I felt pressure on my left shoulder that I had never felt before. And I knew instantly that it was not good. Previously, I had been getting some massage therapy. Some friends of mine are fantastic massage therapists, and I had been seeing a couple of them every so often. And as soon as this happened, I called my friend who was my massage therapist at the time, went to see her, and her massage did not work. I went to another gig, a wedding gig, and I played the cocktail. And after the cocktail set, I could not play with my left hand. I could not play with my left arm. I maneuvered the parts so that my left hand was doing less work, and I called my massage therapist on the set break and asked her what the next step would be, and she recommended her osteopath. That osteopath in 2 sessions reset my body and made it as though that injury had never happened. I know body work does not always work for everyone. It worked for me, and I also had to change some of the ways I carried my equipment and how much equipment I would carry at one time. So if you need to make more trips from the car to the venue, do it. If you need to carry your equipment with gloves, I know drummers and keyboard players who wear like baseball gloves or golf gloves, batting gloves or golf gloves to carry their equipment. Drum hardware is heavy, keyboards are heavy, guitar amps are heavy, bass amps are heavy. We have to bend to load the keyboard onto the stand. We have to bend to put the keyboard back in the stand. That's a lot of wear and tear on our arms, our hands, our backs, our necks, our knees before we even play a note of music. I would advise you to see some kind of either bodywork specialist or even a personal trainer to find where your weak points are and to learn how to properly carry and install your gear. All right, on to the performance and musical aspects of avoiding physical burnout. Volume comes from velocity, not force. I'm going to say that again. Volume comes from velocity, not force. If you play a keyboard or a piano, you will know that the action bottoms out at a certain point, and there is no benefit to be gained from laying in to the bottom of the key bed. The volume of a piano comes from the speed, the velocity at which the hammer strikes the string, the speed at which the key activates the hammer and strikes the string. If you've worked in any digital audio workstation, if you've done any synth programming or production, you know about changing the velocity of your notes, changing the velocity of your piano roll. That's what makes things louder or softer. That will change the response of your samples or your synth, all of that. Velocity is from speed. In fact, it takes more force and more strength to play softly and slowly because I'm controlling the speed at which I depress the key. So you can play really lightly and get 90 to 95% of the volume that you need without overexerting your forearms and your wrists. Always remember that your volume comes from velocity and you can get away with playing a lot lighter than you think you need to. For example, on that night where I had two salsa gigs back to back, I know that I have a tendency to overexert and over muscle my montunos. It's a very physical way of playing piano. There's a lot of physicality involved in salsa music, and it's party music. There's adrenaline. In doing that, sometimes I feel it in my forearms that I'm laying into the piano too much. I'm laying into the key bed too much, and I'm overexerting myself and using strength that I don't need to use, force that I don't need to use in playing that type of music. And so, because I knew I had two gigs back to back, two salsa gigs back to back in the same night, I really paid attention and was mindful of letting my velocity, letting my fingers do the work and keeping my forearms out of it and really not burying the keys into the key bed, really trying to stay light in the way I was playing my montunos. The sibling to that is that amplification can be your friend. You don't want to be incredibly loud. You don't want to blow people off the stage, but you can maybe afford to gain stage your instrument so that you can play less hard, play lighter, play with less muscle exertion, and let your amplification, whether it's your in ear monitors or your wedge monitor or your amp, let those things pick up the slack and do the work for you so that you don't need to physically play quite so hard and with quite so much force. The last piece of advice that I would offer is, if at all possible, to warm up on the instrument you'll be performing on. I know in festival situations or in multi band situations, the changeovers might be short. You may not have a lot of time for sound check. You may not have a lot of time in the changeover, but it's really important, if at all possible, to warm up on the instrument that you'll be using. It doesn't help you to warm up on a little MIDI controller if you're going to be playing on a concert grand piano. You need to be used to the mechanics of the instrument that you will be performing on. You need to have that in your muscle memory as quickly and as much as you can. I made a video a few years ago about the repertoire and the pieces I use to get to know a piano really, really quickly, because they're pieces that I know deeply. And I know as soon as I play those pieces, I know how the instrument's responding. I know how I'm responding physically and mentally. I was very lucky that the majority of the stretch of gigs that I did while I was at home in the 2 weeks in September, August and September, were on my instrument, on my Nord Electro. I know that action. I know how the samples respond. Everything is set based on how I play. It's my instrument, it's my baby. I know how it works. For a keyboard player, that's exceedingly rare. And then when I was in Paris, I had 2 days of playing the same Steinway grand piano in the same studio, and so I got to know that piano as quickly and efficiently as I could, and I made friends with it. Helps that it's a fantastic piano. It was a piano that responded to the way that I play, and I understood by warming up with repertoire that I know quite well. I knew what to expect from that piano. I knew how it would respond. I knew how much energy and strength I needed to control it or not. And even in that situation, as I was getting tired, I turned up my headphones a little bit. You have to gauge the difference of turning up your headphones and protecting your ears, like we talked about before, versus turning up the headphones to compensate for the limited amount of force that you're going to exert into the instrument. I hope those pieces of advice help. Let me know in the comments if you have any other tips for injury, if you've overcome performance injuries, if you've avoided performance injuries. I think it's a discussion that's incredibly important for musicians of all levels to have. I want us all to have long and fruitful careers, and I don't want to see anybody sidelined by physical burnout, physical injury. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't done so already, please click like and subscribe. I know every YouTuber and content creator asks you to do that, but it really indeed does help the channel. So if you haven't done so, please click those little buttons below, like and subscribe. My name's David Rishpan. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.